This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for checking in. Russia struck the heart of Ukraine overnight with missile and drone attacks. At least 9 killed in the capital, Kyiv, including 6 children, dozens more injured. Correspondent Keir Simmons gets us started.
Russia reducing residential buildings to rubble. Families in Kyiv sheltering underground amid the barrage. President Zelensky cutting a foreign trip short, saying Russia is avoiding, quote, tough pressure and accountability. The Trump administration ramping up the pressure on Ukraine. Zelensky can have peace, Trump writing on Wednesday, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country.
President Trump says he's not taking sides in this war, which has been raging since the winter of 2022.
I have no favorites. I don't want to have any favorites. I want to have a deal done.
He did take to social media today to issue a rare rebuke of the Russian ruler. CBS's Christopher Cruz.
President Trump just wrote on social media, "I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done."
The president meets this afternoon at the White House with the Prime Minister of Norway. The public mourning period ends tomorrow night for Pope Francis, who died Monday at the age of 88.
It's been amazing so far just to see how many people have gathered here and just from all walks of life around the world.
He was very kind, and we'll just be very grateful for what he did for the church, for us, for the poor people.
Those well-wishers waited in line for hours at the Vatican just to see the pontiff for a few seconds in his wooden casket.
His coffin placed in front of the altar of confession that rests over the bones of the first pope, St. Peter. The funeral for Pope Francis on Saturday begins 9 days of mourning with memorial masses around Rome and the world. Then the focus turns to the conclave, the secretive meeting where the cardinals will choose the next successor to St. Peter.
Lauren Green with Fox News says a string of world leaders will soon descend on Rome for Saturday's papal funeral. Survey says most Americans don't like the Trump tariffs. Michael Wallace reports.
A new AP NORC poll finds most Americans are not fans of President Trump's tariffs. 70% say his trade policies will either raise prices a lot or somewhat. 60% say Trump has gone too far when it comes to imposing new tariffs. 60% are also worried about grocery prices. Half are extremely or very concerned the economy could slip into a recession.
The president says his tough new tariffs on China could lead to a new trade deal with China. Administration official Kevin Hassett.
We've got virtually every country on earth negotiating with us right now. We've got the Chinese open to talks already. The president has moved the world in a way that is unprecedented, and it's in the direction of the American worker.
Michael Sobulik at the Hudson Institute.
One of the biggest dangers that the Trump administration and everyone in Washington is facing right now is thinking too small when it comes to trade.
Sobulik says the U.S. and China are embroiled in a Cold War, and the tariff tit for tat is just one component of that Cold War.
President Trump is locked in a competition with Xi Jinping that America needs to win. In order to win, we're going to have to start thinking beyond tariffs and beyond cutting deals and look for more leverage to get the upper hand against Beijing.
A dozen states are suing the Trump administration over the tariffs, which they argue are hurting state economies. Anti-Israeli agitators planning an encampment protest today at Columbia University in New York City.
Protesters opposed to the Gaza war will take to the West Butler lawn at Columbia's Morningside Heights campus. That's where last year's encampments were. Then a second supposedly more robust encampment will start Friday at the Ivy League University's campus in Manhattanville. That site is not gated off to outsiders. It's not clear how many protesters are Columbia students. Andrew Whitman, New York.
President Trump is cracking down on DEI practices in public schools. He signed 2 new executive orders. White House Staff Secretary Will Scharf.
We want to focus focus on merit, not things like disparate impact theory and the whole sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion cult.
One executive order aimed at groups that evaluate college accreditation. The other provides guidance to K through 12 schools. A raging wildfire in southern New Jersey, now 50% contained. Reporter Nikki Batiste.
A growing wildfire in southern New Jersey, sending plumes of smoke above neighborhoods in Ocean County, has left some people who live there on edge, including Amy Zettel, who was allowed back home after an earlier evacuation order.
It's a nerve-wracking feeling. It's unsettling.
Firefighters are finally starting to get control of the blaze that quadrupled in size in the span of 24 hours.
Fire officials expect to have full containment by tomorrow night or early Saturday. Police have arrested a 19-year-old in connection to the blaze. The CDC says U.S. births increased by just 1% last year from 2023's record low. Dr. Bill Fry is a demographer at the Brookings Institution.
It's a combination of the economy and also young people wanting to wait until they get their lives in order before having kids.
The Trump administration says it's considering a $5,000 cash incentive to encourage more women to have babies in this country. The NFL draft takes center stage tonight in Green Bay, Wisconsin. NBC's Kaylee Hartung has more.
Green Bay is a football town, and for the next 3 days, Lambeau Field will be the center of the NFL universe. It all starts tonight when 32 players will hear their names called and then forever be known as first-round picks.
University of Miami quarterback Cam Ward is expected to be the overall top pick. The Tennessee Titans will select first. The Cleveland Browns go second, followed by the New York Football Giants. Still to come on the Noon Report, doctor-prescribed death, air quality in the Empire State, and real ID at the DMV.
Good afternoon to all. I'm Kevin Williams. A balmy day underway, but some changes are on the way. Forecast details are coming up. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
All right, Kevin, see you then. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. New York Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie says there are enough votes in his chamber to approve assisted suicide legislation. That could happen as soon as next week. Jason McGuire with New York Families is fighting to stop it. He's hosting an event on Tuesday, May 6th, to raise awareness about the dangers of doctor-sanctioned suicide.
There is a rally day alongside our coalition efforts with the New York Alliance Against Assisted Suicide to bring people to Albany and hopefully to really weigh that vote that would sanction suicide in our state.
The assisted suicide bill would allow physicians to prescribe lethal drugs to terminally ill adults who've been told by doctors they have less than 6 months to live. This month's arson attack at the Pennsylvania governor's mansion continues to make headlines. Spoke about it earlier with Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. This Molotov cocktail that was thrown at the governor's residence while he and his family were asleep. Thankfully, nobody was harmed. Do we know any more about the suspect, what his motivations might have been, or is this just a case of a deranged man acting out? Could there have been something more political in mind here?
Well, I think there might be. I wrote about this in my weekly online commentary last week because I was really troubled by this, genuinely troubled to see this attack on the governor's residence, and it took place just hours after they had celebrated a Passover Seder dinner. According to the news reports and official statements, it appears that anti-Semitism and support for the Palestinian cause may have been a key motivating factor for this man, Cody Balmer. Shapiro himself didn't call it a hate crime or make statements about the motivation. He says that's the role for the prosecutors. But there's also the issue of mental illness. His mom says, Balmer's mother says he had stopped taking his medication. But all that to say, violence is not the answer to political or policy disagreement.
That is Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. The deadline to get Real ID compliant is less than 2 weeks away, and many DMVs are getting swamped. Monica Nelson has our report.
May 7th is the day travelers will need a Real ID compliant form of identification, like an enhanced driver's license to board domestic flights or enter certain federal facilities. facilities. Some states have extended office hours or are adding staff to meet the demand. To find the best locations and for more information, go to dhs.gov. I'm Monica Nelson.
New York State Police are doing their part today to make sure kids get on and off the school bus safely. It's all part of Operation Safe Stop. It is estimated more than 100,000 motorists a day illegally pass stopped school buses. Pennsylvania Congressman Glenn Thompson reacting to the news that at least 22 Penn State international students have had their visas revoked. Thompson telling WJAC these removals are for those who violated the law.
The bottom line is, though, being in our country under a visa is a privilege. And I don't think we're treating that any differently than what we have seen other countries do.
Also, 3 international students at Syracuse University have had their visas revoked. 2 of them are set to graduate next month. 4 men have been banned from Pennsylvania casinos for leaving children unattended, some of whom were left unattended in their vehicles. The Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board has placed these individuals on the involuntary casino exclusion list. One man had left 3 children between the ages of 2 to 12 in the parking garage at a casino near Hershey for more than 2 hours while he gambled inside. Nearly $250 million going to water and sewage projects throughout Pennsylvania. Details on that from Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, that grant and loan money is coming through the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, or PENVEST, and covers 32 drinking water and wastewater projects in 23 counties, anything from replacing lead water lines to rehabbing critical dams. The breakdown includes $25 million in water treatment upgrades for Clearfield County, $22 million to improve Johnstown's North Fork Reservoir Dam, and $20 million for reservoir and sewage treatment upgrades in Lycoming County. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
It is getting harder to breathe in parts of New York. The annual State of the Air report from the American Lung Association says overall air quality has worsened. Spokesperson Mike Seelbach tells Spectrum News,
we all have lungs, and this level of air pollution could literally get people sick.
The Buffalo area ranked 3rd worst in the Northeast for year-round particle pollution. Dr. Robert Zielinski with the Buffalo Medical Group says it's hard to protect yourself from breathing in fine particulates.
This is tiny, tiny particulate stuff. You would need the full-on wartime gas mask.
The report found nearly half of all Americans live in communities with unhealthy levels of air pollution. Well, today is Take Our Daughters and Sons to Work Day. It's an opportunity to show our children how the business world operates and expose them to different types of occupations. Originally, it was founded as National Take Your Daughter to Work Day, but that event was expanded to include boys back in 2003. Pennsylvania may soon have a new state song. Family Life's Brian Query.
An effort to replace the Pennsylvania state song is underway at the state capitol. A resolution passed by the House would create an independent commission to study the history of the state song, solicit submissions from the public, and recommend changes. The legislature would then have the option of passing legislation to change the state song based on the commission's recommendation. The current state song, written by Eddie Corey and Ronnie Bonner, is entitled Pennsylvania. Though there are no official suggestions for a new song yet, there are many songs that could be options.
Well, we're living here in
The resolution now goes on to the state Senate for consideration. Brian Query, Family Life News.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Let's switch gears next. Talk sports. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Yankees finally figured out Cleveland's pitching, and they salvaged the final game of their series 5-1. Paul Goldschmidt, 3 for 5, and he drove in a pair. Carlos Rodon earned the victory. He struck out 8 over 7 innings. How about the Amazons? They are on fire. The Mets won their 7th straight game, this one in extra innings. Starling Marte drove home the winning run in the 10th. New York swept the Phillies 4-3 the final. Andrew Heaney stellar on the mound for the Pirates. He struck out the side the first 2 innings and then retired the first 15 hitters he saw before giving up a single. It was the only hit he allowed over 6 innings. O'Neill Cruz blasted a 463-foot home run, and the Bucs shut out the Angels 3-0. On to the NBA. The Celtics went up 2-0 over the Magic with a 109-100 win. Jaylen Brown grabbed 10 rebounds and scored 36 points to lead the C's. The Cavs also defended home court advantage, beating the Heat 121-112. Donovan Mitchell had 30 points to lead the Cavs to a 2-0 series lead. The Rockets and the Warriors now tied at a game apiece after Jalen Green went off for 38 points, 109-94 the final. On the ice, the Caps down the Canadiens 3-1 to take a 2-0 series lead. Kings also up 2-0 after their 6-2 domination over the Oilers. And the Stars are up 2-1 over the Avalanche. Dallas skated to a 2-1 victory last night. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, thank you very much. Still to come on the Noon Report. For a Thursday, Russia ratchets up the war, gender wars in Pennsylvania, and nature's jackhammer terrorizes New England.
Guess who?
Details next.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Well, one question that ought to haunt the Western world is how, over the last decade, an obviously unscientific claim that men can become women and vice versa birthed such an anti-scientific movement that still somehow won the endorsement of virtually the entire scientific and medical community in the developed world. Within just a few short years, nearly every association involved in healthcare affirmed not only that a person really could be quote-unquote transgender, but a whole litany of ghoulish, harmful procedures that were then called healthcare. Now, at least part of the answer here to this gnawing question is that the endorsements were the result of close ties between medical groups and radical gender activists, scandalously close ties. As the Daily Wire recently reported, according to findings by the American Accountability Foundation, one woman was listed as managing or executive director on tax documents for 26 major medical organizations around the U.S. Sue O'Sullivan holds these numerous roles through her position as co-founder of Veritas Association Management, an Illinois-based professional services company. However, she's also the managing director for the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH. And aside from showing up on social media and at WPATH events, O'Sullivan is listed on multiple documents by that organization promoting so-called transgender medical procedures, including putting children on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Her organization has led in promoting the most extreme forms of so-called affirming medicine, including the removal of breasts for girls who identify as boys, and she's also opposed laws to protect kids from such procedures. WPATH also condemned President Trump's recent executive order cutting funding for all of these practices. Tax documents also show that O'Sullivan spent around 8 times as many hours working with WPATH on trans issues as she did with any of her other management roles. Those roles included titles at the American Pediatric Surgical Association, the American Society of Andrology, the Society for Cardiovascular and Magnetic Resonance, the Society of Academic Bone Radiologists, the Society for Vascular Medicine, and the Society of OBGYN Hospitalists, to name a few. The last decade has exposed an unbelievable amount of cowardice and incompetence among the medical establishment, especially when it comes to protecting children from powerful adults who are entrusted with their care. To be frank, a whole lot of people need to lose their jobs, and some need to be prosecuted. This is also a warning for the future that every field, even medicine, is susceptible to values and worldview. Basic beliefs about the human person and the sanctity of life have consequences, and when these beliefs are wrong, they have victims. Physicians and other providers with integrity must have the courage to stand up to ideological emperors, especially the ones with no clothes on. And as frustrating as it is to be called anti-science, once again, Christians have to be prepared to always defend created reality and protect the most vulnerable from the next manufactured consensus. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you very much, John. Outside next, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Partly sunny and warm. High temperatures 70s and low 80s. Much cooler, though, along the immediate shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Tonight, partly cloudy, mild, low temps, mid-40s to mid-50s. Tomorrow, some early sunshine. Clouding up with afternoon showers and rumbles. High temps 70s. 60s, though, in western New York. And then on Saturday, much cooler with cloudy skies and showers. Temperatures start the day in the 50s and 60s. But many areas will drop and then hold into the 40s during the day.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. This is the Noon Report. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Thursday, the 24th of April. The public viewing of Pope Francis ends tomorrow night at the Vatican. Tens of thousands parading past his wooden casket at St. Peter's Basilica. More from reporter Jay Gray.
The line stretching from St. Peter's Basilica winds through and around its famous square, thousands waiting for hours to spend just a few seconds inside.
Dozens of heads of state will attend Saturday's papal funeral in Rome. Up to 250,000 people expected to be there. Millions more will watch on television. The mass should last about 90 minutes. Russian rockets rained down on Kyiv overnight, killing at least 9, including 6 children. Dozens more were injured in the capital of Ukraine. The Putin regime fired 70 missiles and launched 150 drones at that city of 3 million. Still, President Trump is holding out for a peace deal.
I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far it's been harder, but that's okay.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says this latest missile strike proves Russia is not serious about peace. Russian affairs expert Beth Noble.
I just don't see how the war ends with the peace deal that's currently on the table. It's just too lopsidedly in favor of the Russians and really doesn't give Ukraine anything.
The Trump proposed peace deal gives Russia control of the Crimea Peninsula, which it annexed from Ukraine a decade ago. Mr. Trump will talk more about the Russia-Ukraine war when he welcomes the Prime Minister of Norway to the White House this afternoon. President Trump signed an executive order yesterday that boosts AI education at school. The goal here is to build a U.S. workforce equipped to use this rapidly growing technology. Education Secretary Linda McMahon's instructed schools incorporate artificial intelligence into all subject matter. The commander-in-chief has some work to do at convincing Americans that his tariffs are a good idea. Just 33% of us, U.S., believe the tariffs will work. Lauren Simonetti at Fox Business.
Many Americans believe that the tariffs are inflationary or will be inflationary. That's the worry. The stock market is down. Many of us are invested in the stock market, and it's down 5% or more since April the 2nd, which was the announcement of the tariffs on Liberation Day.
A dozen U.S. states are suing the Trump administration over the tariffs, arguing they are unconstitutional. The Texas State Senate has passed the Women's Privacy Act. It requires transgender people use the bathroom that corresponds with their sex at birth. Republican sponsor Lois Kalkhorst.
I never dreamed that the day would come that I would have to worry that a male would walk into the bathroom.
The Women's Privacy Act applies to all public restrooms in state and county buildings across Texas, including public schools and universities. You're listening to the Noon Report for Thursday on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Pennsylvania attorney Thomas Breath. We're talking gender identity. Pennsylvania has changed the meaning of gender, and now 2 school districts, Beaver and Butler, are suing the state to protect girls' rights on campus. Thomas, what is the new definition of gender in Pennsylvania, and how did they change it?
It seems like that would be a simple answer. I'm going to give you some examples of the complexity that is now involved in defining men and women within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You have to flip back through the regulation to see how they've defined gender identity and gender expression. I'm quoting, may be demonstrated by consistent and uniform assertion of the gender identity or any other evidence that the gender identity is part of the person's core identity. And you might wonder, say, okay, well, what do they mean by core identity? So you have to go further up in the regulation, which is defined as fundamental beliefs and values, personal characteristics, and physical or mental attributes. That's one example of how they have changed the definition of gender from simply a man or a woman or a male or a female.
These schools are in a conundrum because if a biological boy wants to play on a girls' sports team, the schools could get sued by either side. The boy that's claiming he's losing rights and also the girls on the team who are losing their freedom and their privacy. And it's impacting their ability to compete against members of the same sex to get on the roster and to get college scholarships. So how do schools stay afloat financially when the standard is there is no right and wrong? All genders are welcome, and you can get sued by both sides if you don't get the definition right.
Correct. And we've seen that. We obviously pay attention to the litigation in this area. There have been many school districts that have simultaneous litigation going on. Litigation from those that believe that the definition of sex should be whatever the individual declares themselves to be at any given point in their life, versus those that believe from the start of the existence of mankind, the history of our world, it has been male and female, man and woman. So school districts are very much so in that conundrum. It's impacting their insurance rates because they have to have a special rider on their insurance in Pennsylvania to cover this type of litigation. But also, we talk about this in the context of students an awful lot. The regulations aren't written in a manner that differentiates between students versus adult members of the staff or adult members of the community. This doesn't solely apply to students. It equally applies to any adult individual that may feel that they identify in some other sex and could very easily access the facilities that are provided to the female or male students that are significantly younger. They were talking about juveniles, young adults that could be exposed to biological men or biological women accessing those sex-designated facilities.
Pennsylvania voters are decidedly clear about what they think about boys on girls' sports teams. It is a hard no. But when it comes to the gay and lesbian movement overall, the vote is a lot tighter. The LGBTQ plus movement has gained a lot of ground, and their main argument is inclusion, that those that don't accept them are hateful. How do you win an argument on gender in a courtroom when the outside appearance is that fighting for girls isolates the transgender movement?
The complaint that we've laid out, we've made the same argument in a number of other cases successfully. The legal argument is that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission does not have the legal authority by regulation to redefine the term sex. You've done something that you don't have the legal authority to do. It needs to be decided in the General Assemblies of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the other states. From the district's perspective, all students should feel safe at school. All students should have equal rights to an education. That doesn't necessitate putting one student's rights above another student's rights. And when you're talking about redefining sex, you're saying we're going to put a group of students' rights over other students' rights, the privacy, security within the most intimate and private areas, restrooms, locker rooms, the protection of competing against people of the same gender, students of the same gender. You can Google, and there are countless articles of female athletes that have been hurt significantly, some permanently hurt, because they've been required to compete against biological males. Secondly, we need to be very respectful and kind to the individuals that vehemently disagree with our legal position and disagree with the impact that it might have in their minds We're very conscious of that. This is a very serious issue. This is not A or B issue. Just pray that God helps guide us, checking our own actions and words when we're dealing with individuals, whether they're gay, that we really spend the time to say, we may disagree with you, but we most certainly understand how Jesus asks us to treat you.
That is Attorney Thomas Breath on this week's edition of Faith Under Fire. You can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature as well as all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
A very good afternoon to all. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Balmy air is in place across our region. Only areas near Lake Erie and Lake Ontario are not feeling the effects of these warm breezes. But changes are coming. A cold front moving through the Midwest will arrive with showers to start the weekend, and much cooler air will follow. Sunday still appearing to be by far the nicer of the 2 weekend days weather-wise coming up. For this afternoon, partly sunny and warm. High temperatures, 70s and low 80s. Much cooler, though, along the immediate shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Tonight, partly cloudy, mild, low temps, mid-40s to mid-50s. Tomorrow, some early sunshine. Clouding up with afternoon showers and rumbles. High temps, 70s. 60s, though, in western New York. And then on Saturday, much cooler with cloudy skies and showers. Temperatures start the day in the 50s and 60s, but many areas will drop and then hold into the 40s during the day.
All right, thanks for all the hard work at the Weather Center, Kevin. Finally at noon, ruffling feathers in Rockport, Massachusetts.
We seem to have a vandal in our neighborhood, and I'm describing him as, 18 to 24 inches tall, wearing black and white with a red hat.
The neighborhood nuisance is none other than a pileated woodpecker whose likeness inspired the mischievous cartoon character, Woody the Woodpecker.
Guess who?
This foul bird's destroying cars and pecking holes in homes from the Northeast to the Midwest, even into Canada.
2 Woody Woodpeckers on my neighbor's car trying to break his window.
With spring in full bloom, love is in the air, and wildlife experts say these avian antics are all about finding a mate.
This time of year is breeding season, so all these male birds, not just pileated woodpeckers, but all birds are getting into a very aggressive territorial courtship display.
And even though broken mirrors allegedly bring 7 years of bad luck,
if they're seeing a reflection of themselves, they don't understand it's a reflection. They think it's a competitor.
Hence the broken mirrors. At least 25 vehicles have been damaged in Rockport. Officials there urging residents to cover their mirrors to prevent them from being pecked. Mating season, by the way, typically starts at the end of March and lasts through June for the pileated woodpecker in Rockport, Massachusetts. And that's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, April 24th. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.